Hello, friends. Welcome. Say hello, happy home. I'm happy to be here with you today. It's Monday, January 9. Oh, February 9. Oh, jeez. I thought I had the new year nailed already. Anyway, it's not what I want to talk about. So, over the weekend, I did put out a post reminding people that there are, at any given moment, around 100,000 missing Americans, active missing cases at all times, which is 100,000 more than is acceptable. However, there are many reasons why people go missing. Initially, when the Nancy Guthrie case began, it was a missing person case. But now that they have ransom notes, clues, captors, abductors demanding money, this has become an abduction for ransom, hostage situation. It is a little different than many other cases where individuals are missing. However, missing persons cases typically end up on the desk of the FBI. Now, I don't know the priority that the FBI uses, and I think that should always be questioned and transparent, because I really do believe, and it's not a conspiracy, it's not a slight on any particular United States presidential administration at any given time, but I don't think that they give all these cases their due, their right amount of time. They're always going to remain open, but open doesn't necessarily mean that anybody cares about them or they're looking for them. And I think that it should be a number one priority. Of course, national security is the top priority, but we have a gazillion, three-letter acronym departments all over the United States and the world that handle national security. If someone you love goes missing, if someone you love dies, that's final. It's absolute. You can't control it. You have to deal with it. You move on, right? But if somebody goes missing, you don't know the wheres, the whys, the whats, the whos, especially young people and children. And I tend to think that children who are runaways get tossed to the curb, that the FBI and local law enforcement probably do absolutely nothing to help these families find their children, their loved ones, because they just figure out it's a troubled child. They don't care. And I really don't believe that they care. I don't, because there are zero resources, zero support, zero national exposure to teenage runaways. And if they run away, odds are they're being handled, they're being manipulated and conned and groomed by some adult. And if that's not the case, they're running away because of something that's happening at school or happening in their home. And these things need to be investigated with far much more vigor and resources than we give other cases. And yes, I do believe there's a racial line. I do believe that children who are runaways or children from oppressed homes or communities are going to get less exposure, and I think that's sickening, but it's the reality. And the Nancy Guthrie case is a good point to make with this. She's an affluent white woman whose daughter is somewhat of a journalistic celebrity. And so the feds and the locals are swarming on this case. Again, it is different because it does have to do with abduction for ransom. That's not the same as someone just going missing. So there is a distinction there, and I do understand why the news outlets are making this breaking news. They're sending reporters down, but we also have to keep calm and rational with what's happening, because what the news is reporting is being reported in compartmentalized sections. And because we aren't privy to what's going on, they're misinterpreting what is actually happening. Now, there's been a lot of scuttlebutt this morning on the news about how they're at Ann Guthrie's house. Well, Annie Guthrie is one of her daughters, and her husband, Tommaso, was the last person to see Nancy Guthrie alive, as we know so far. Well, the abductor, of course. And the law enforcement agencies were seen digging around Annie Guthrie's property, taking photos, taking things out of the house. And they may be doing that for reasons other than they're liking them for the kidnapping. It may be that that was the last place Nancy Guthrie was. Maybe it has to do with the Uber driver, and Tommaso took the Uber home, and they need to investigate. Also, in sophisticated situations where there is a high-profile abduction and very large ransom, these individuals may have, in fact, surveyed Annie Guthrie's house along with Nancy's house. If these homes are in close proximity, they live in the same communities or nearby, and they're a very close-knit family where the mom is with the kids a lot at their home, then just like Nancy Guthrie's home, they're going to be going to those homes to look for evidence, not evidence that they're accusing the family of anything at all. They may, of course, the family is going to be the number one that they're going to look at, but they also may be looking for clues, because these kidnappers may very well have surveyed all of the family's properties in that proximity to determine, to do test runs to see which home would be the best option to nab her from. Maybe they saw an opportunity, or maybe they were sneaking around the property in the back to survey her to get an idea of how they could effectively kidnap her. So this, or maybe to throw the authorities off, the kidnappers took her by gunpoint or knife point or whatever, and they went on to Annie Guthrie's house and they threw it down a sewer drain in the back of her property or something. They may be going back and forth between the properties prior to realizing she was missing, and spread evidence around. If anybody's out there remembers, or is old enough to remember when Nicole Brown Simpson and Mr. Goldman were killed by O.J. Simpson, that evidence, it got spread. There was like drags and smears and blood everywhere. There was a blood trail at his house in Rockingham. They found one of the gloves at the scene, I think, and then another one somewhere in the back of his house. So, sometimes evidence gets spread around to throw off law enforcement and kind of confuse them and make it harder for them to find the perpetrator. So let's be calm about what's happening here. What we know so far is that this is absolutely an abduction for ransom. The abductors are looking for, I think, $6 million in Bitcoin. I know that Bitcoin has an extensive security system, and those things are literally being tracked as they're being created. Because it's Bitcoin, which is a brandy new, virtual, really untested, unsecured, insecure, unpredictable method of monetary money. It's not physical money and things. That's telling of maybe their age range. It's also telling of that they're computer nerds, because they're looking at Bitcoin and they're not looking at other things. So this just might be routine, it might be distraction, but let's not jump to conclusions that they're accusing Annie Guthrie or her husband Tommaso of anything at all. It could just be standard procedure. It could be that the abductor is trying to make it look like the Guthrie children kidnapped their mom. So they might have deliberately planted evidence on the property to make it look like they're responsible. That's something that, criminals do all the time too. So I'm noticing this tone in the journalists and the news pundits and reporters. Why are they hanging around Andy Guthrie's house? They're back there again? Well, yeah, because she lives in very close proximity to her mother's home where mom was abducted. And they are very, very, very close. So mom spends a lot of time there, and they spend a lot of time at her house. It's mixed DNA, mixed fingerprints, mixed evidence. So they have to sort it out, and that's part of what's going on here. But I also don't want this case to overshadow, because technically she still is missing, all of the 100,000 Americans who are missing today. We have to demand more from our current administration and those to follow, that they give absolute priority to every missing person. Because whether you're the affluent white mother of a celebrity journalist, or you're an indigenous woman who was out for a walk one evening and never returned, whether you're a troubled child from a troubled home and you ran away, whether you're a mom of a young children who just never came home from her morning run, all of them deserve the same from their America, from their government, from their FBI. Those families and those missing people deserve every bit as much attention and exposure and media focus as Nancy Guthrie. And whenever these high-profile cases come along, we start to see a lot on social media about desperate families showing photos of their children or their loved one the last time they saw them, that they're still missing. When I go into Walmart to shop, they have a whole billboard on the wall, and they change out the missing persons on that billboard when missing persons, show up on the radar or they're found. And I always try to stop and look at each and every one of those faces. What bothers me about it is that when I look for it, I see the faces of so many people in the faces of those missing, because we're so desperate to find them that we want to believe that, hey, maybe we did see them. When I was head of security for a large worldwide retailer, I was head of security in the early 2000s in Michigan and Minnesota for this realtor and Homeland Security liaison on behalf of that retailer in the city shopping malls in those states as well. And I started a campaign in my Michigan store for missing people, and we put up all of the phone numbers and tip lines and what to look for, because children get abducted all the time from shopping centers and stores. It's not cliche, it's fact. They're crowded, parents are distracted, there's a lot of noise and a lot of things going on, too many people, it's easy to grab a kid. So I put up for my loss prevention staff and for the staff in general what to look for. And if they find things, what to look for, because retailers have a responsibility to the communities in which they reside to make sure that if there's any way that we can provide information on a missing child or stop an abductor from taking a child out of your store, you got to do everything you can. So it's responsible citizenship, it's responsible retailership. So I started that campaign then, and I really I really have, um, I really have a strong passion for missing people. And I think it's unfair when people profile the missing and make assumptions about them. Well, it's just a runaway. She's run away 15 times before. Yeah, but this time she could have been taken for trafficking. She could have killed herself. She could be in horrific conditions living by a dumpster in an alley. It doesn't matter how many times. It doesn't matter the circumstances. It matters that they be found. No judgment. You know, a lot of people go missing for drug-related issues, mental health issues. These are people in crisis that need medical attention, long-term inpatient care attention. They don't need to just go for a 72-hour hold and then let loose on the street because they go missing again. I mean, it's really complicated, but it involves at least 100,000 Americans at every given moment of every day. They deserve our support, they deserve our attention, and they deserve to be found. So I wish the Guthrie family well. I hope they can resolve this very quickly because we're on, day 7, day 8? I think it's an absolute egregious error on the part of the family to be willing to pay, because once you pay, the next thing you know, you got a Bolivian thing going on or a Cuban thing going on, or, where it's just an everyday occurrence in South America and a lot of these rogue nations where people are being kidnapped for money every day. It's an actual career choice there. And you don't want to start that precedent here because you're putting everybody in danger. I think they are wrong in paying it. I think it's a stupid and reckless idea that's going to get a lot of people in the future killed. Your judgment is skewed by your desperation. And I think it's a really bad idea. It's going to set a precedent that's going to spiral out of control. But nonetheless, it's not my family. It's not my choice. Choice or not, it's wrong. They shouldn't do it. But I hope that everything turns out for the best and that people in the future don't get abducted and killed because they paid Nancy Guthrie's ransom. It could backfire. But we'll find out. Until then, when you go through your grocery stores and you see those missing posters on those electrical poles and different things, stop and look. Place your hand on their photo and understand that that's a human being that could be in great danger or peril. And if they left on their own accord, there's a reason. And that reason could be putting them in danger and peril. So you want to find them to protect them and find out why they had to leave. Let's all be conscientious of the missing and find them. Bring them back and let them live the American dream that they're being deprived of because they're missing. And stop criminals from taking other human beings. And until next time, do good and be good.